Hello, hello, welcome. Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. We are coming to you live on Facebook Live and also by radio, 1190 a.m. today. We have a special show today. The title is Caregivers, Prepare to Care. And before I go on, I want to say, first of all, that today is August the 4th, 2018. I'm going to start getting into the habit of saying the date so that when people watch this video later on, they know what the date is. And I'm going to also post it on those slides that people are seeing on Facebook Live. Please know I have a very important announcement to make, and then we'll go into the subject today. And that is that this is the last show. Today is the last show on Saturdays. The last show on Saturdays. We are moving the show to Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. And again, it'll still come to you via Facebook Live. So if you haven't joined our page, if you're listening by radio, find us at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection, and follow our page, and you'll get all the notices in there, the commercials, the videos, and a lot more stuff that we post regarding many issues. So again, this is the last show on Saturdays. We're moving it to Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. If someone is on Facebook Live, if they can let us know if the sound is good, we have one of our guests here who I'm going to introduce very shortly has that Facebook open, and we will be able to see those comments. And by the way, starting today, and obviously also on Thursdays, if you are on radio and you want to give us a call and let us know what you think, or let us know if you have a question or a comment, we will start taking your calls. This is the first time I probably have announced this. So let me see. The number is 602-759-1910. So if you are so inclined and would like to give us a call, please do. Again, Facebook Live is at AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Let me introduce our guests. Let me start from my right. We have, let me see if I can remember, Cindy Finley.
That's right.
Cindy Finley, and you are with the Caregiving or Caregiver?
It's the Arizona Caregiver Coalition.
Caregiver Coalition. Thank you so very much. Short notice. And you decided to come. I am very appreciative of that. Thank you so much, and welcome to our show.
Thanks, David. I'm impressed with AARP, and I love to help out whenever I can.
Oh, thank you so much. And then we have also, now to my left, Brenda Holt. And Brenda is staff of AARP Arizona. Also Alex Juarez, whom you have met before. He's been in our show before. Both Brenda and Alex work for AARP here in Arizona. They're my colleagues. And we invited them because they have experienced what it is to care for a loved one. And I'm talking about, in your case, Brenda, a couple dozens, maybe going in 30 years, 20
Almost,
years?
Yeah, 28 years.
Yeah. Please remember to speak close to the mic.
Okay.
So, Brenda, first of all, thank you and welcome to our show.
Thank you for having me, David.
Yeah. How do you feel?
I feel good.
All right.
I feel good. And it's a subject that I'm passionate about, something I've had great experience over the years, so I'm hoping to be able to impart some of my experience.
Perfect. And Alex, thank you so much for making time, and welcome to our show.
Good morning, David, and good morning to our radio listeners. I believe the caregiver topic is just of extreme importance. It's something that a lot of people forget, how important it is to talk about these caregivers. And the question really is not, are you a caregiver? It's when we're going to be caregivers.
Definitely. And I would like to start the show because these caregivers, a lot of times with the Latino community, it's a little tricky. Because Latinos, they provide care, but terminology doesn't mean too much. And I believe it's the same in every, maybe in most groups, but lately it's been more, if you will, formalized, institutionalized, or however we want to call it. And now we refer to it as caregiving, care recipients, care, that kind of stuff. And I know, Cindy, you're going to be able to help us. But let me start now. Let me continue by reading to you a quote from former First Lady Rosalind Carter. Rosalind Carter. And this is in a PowerPoint that we use at AARP to present this subject in the community. And it goes like this. There are 4 types of people in the world. Number 1, those who have been caregivers. Number 2, those who currently are caregivers. Number 3, those who will be caregivers. And 4, those who will need caregivers. So this is what former First Lady Rosalind Carter said. Unbelievable. It captures it very, very well. Let me throw the first question at the 3 of you. Why do you believe it is important to talk about this subject? Being that it's not new necessarily. It's been going on forever. But why is it important to talk about it in a radio show? Anyone?
Well, first off, caregiving is very isolating. And so right now, people are talking about the detriments of isolation. As a matter of fact, Medicare spends more money on isolated events than any other disease or illness. But caregiving is so important because we as a society are aging and we need to prepare for caregiving.
Absolutely. I think you hit it right on the nail there, Cindy. Isolation is not just the patient or the person receiving the caregiving, but it can also be the caregiver that may feel isolated, that turns around and says, who is helping me? What do I do? How do I start this journey? Who do I turn to? So that's why it's so important to talk about this topic and have a plan in caregiving.
And I think it's important to address the subject because as the population ages, which our stats tell us that they will, we're going to need to figure out and be able to navigate new products, new services, and how are we going to get through that process.
So from what I gather, the preparation aspect of it is the key, right? If someone doesn't make arrangements prepared to care, then it's more difficult. So one of the things that we're going to do in this show today is review some of the items of the preparation. What does it take? What does it mean to prepare to care of someone? And let me say again that AARP has great resources at aarp.org/caregiving. And we also have a PowerPoint, actually, that we go out in the community to present on this issue. Here's a little something that I have, and it's actually on that PowerPoint. It says, do you help a loved one with cleaning, laundry, yard work, medications? Do you regularly cook or provide food for a loved one? How about doctor's appointments, shopping trips, or other errands? Do you provide personal care such as bathing or dressing? Do you help take care of a loved one's finances or help pay their bills? Do you help make decisions about medical coverage and insurance? Do you provide a loved one with emotional support and companionship? Do you help coordinate healthcare with their health professionals? Do you worry about a loved one's safety? If you answered yes to any of those, you are a
caregiver.
Yes. So, Cindy, what do you do with the coalition? Real brief. You are with the Arizona Caregiver Coalition.
Yes, thanks, David. We've got a caregiver resource line that's manned Monday through Friday, 9 to 3. And our Arizona caregivers can call and say any number of questions. Hey, I need to locate a wheelchair. Talk to me about Meals on Wheels. Or how do I find a caregiver?
Right. So the coalition is there to basically support anybody who needs help with caregiving. Exactly.
And it could be you could be caring for an elderly person or even a young person with disabilities. Caregiving comes in all different kinds of aspects.
Right. And it could be very, very difficult when the person needing the care doesn't have anybody around. That could be really challenging, right?
That's right. Interestingly, David, 50% of the seniors that come to Arizona come when they're retired, and they come without support staff. They come without that family infrastructure.
They move from other states to Arizona, and so basically they are by themselves here.
Exactly, they're on their own. And then if they don't get connected to a faith-based community or to just their neighbors, as they age, they become more isolated. In their 80s, when they need help, they have no one to turn to.
And I've heard the word isolated already twice. So that is not a good thing, right? Isolation could be very devastating when it comes, not only even if you don't need care, but more especially when you need care and you're isolated, that could get very, very tricky. And I know we still have a couple more minutes. Alex, you did some caregiving to your mother, I understand. And now you did it at a distance in coordination with a sister?
Yeah, I wasn't the actual primary caregiver. My sister was. She lived right next to my mom. This took place in Mexico City. I, however, try to help my sister every quarter. I would travel to Mexico City along with my wife, and then we would give her that respite care that she would need for her to travel or go out of town or whatever the case may be. So I really didn't have the full burden of the caregiving responsibility for my mom, but I worked very closely with my sister. And again, I think the issue is that people wait until there's a crisis to begin talking to family members or friends or to start planning on the caregiving journey.
Yeah.
That's where we need to be one step ahead.
Right. Brenda, we have a minute. How did the care of your loved ones surprise you? Were you kind of transitioned? Did it suddenly came to you? Or you
it was
prepared?
over a gradual process.
Gradual.
Okay. When I was an adult, moved back to Michigan to care for my parents.
Right.
It was gradual. So it first started out by just providing some simple meals. Then it went from there to the house cleaning and the errands, doctor appointments. Then over a period of time, it became full blown to where I was your full-time caregiver.
And was that because of age? Or
It was age and their physical disabilities, yes.
Physical disabilities, yeah. And I think we still have like 15 seconds now. I understand you're a caregiver, Cindy?
For my mom, I'm just starting.
Okay.
And my mom has dementia.
Dementia.
And so I moved.
That's another level
element,
of
correct.
difficulty,
It
I
is.
assume.
Exactly.
Yeah, wow.
So I moved very close to my mom so I could be there during the gradual decline.
Wow. All right. Stay with us. We will continue the conversation on caregiving. Again, you can give us a call if you would like, and we'll take your call or make comments on Facebook page. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Educate. Celebrate. Connect. Arizona Hispanic Connection.
Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. We are addressing caregivers prepare to care. And let me read just a little bit regarding the cost, because it's very important to understand that a lot of folks are spending their own money. Obviously, there's really not a lot of financial help out there other than respite. But when it comes to providing some of the needs, things that our loved ones need, basically the family is having to pay out of pocket. So this is a report that AARP did. The average out-of-pocket expenses for family caregivers in 2016 is $6,954 a year. So this is what a family average. This is on average. And again, I have to say that if you are of low income, this is basically out of your reach. And you're going to have to depend on family and friends and sometimes neighbors. It's amazing, but there's a lot of that going on where even neighbors are stepping in to take care. Now, when the matter goes to this is the average out-of-pocket expenses for long distance caregiver is shy of $12,000. So when somebody has to take care of someone from a distance, then it's more expensive. And again, if people are of kind of lower income, this is probably going to be out of reach. Family caregivers provide $470 billion in unpaid care a year. So all the money that caregivers are paying out of pocket, if you add that, is $470 billion. And a lot of times there's an argument when AARP was advocating to pass a bill that would grant a tax credit, family tax credit. This is one big argument because this is too much money. And by folks providing their own money, that keeps the loved one in their home, and they don't have to go to like a nursing home where it's going to cost the government perhaps way more money, right?
Exactly.
Let's see. More than 3 in 4 family caregivers, that's 78%, are incurring out-of-pocket costs as a result of caregiving. So that's 78%. Family caregivers are spending, on average, nearly 20% of their income on caregiving activities. So this tells us that in addition to the emotional toll that it may take, that there's also a financial matter. So yeah.
Huge financial. What I've found out is that most people, I'm 55, so most people in my age bracket have no idea who's going to pay for these. It's just assumed that Medicare is going to pay for this. So they assume Medicare is going to help pay for their parents and their grandparents. That is not true. Medicare pays for nothing.
And we are talking about nursing home type of care?
Well, it depends. If it's nursing home because it's an illness and a doctor's orders where you have to stay in a skilled nursing facility, perhaps during rehab, yes, that's covered.
Right.
But assisted living is not covered.
Right.
Independent living, having someone come in and care, give bathing and assist with dressing and transferring, that's not covered in Medicare. However, in Medicaid, it is.
Right.
And, very few people are on Medicaid.
Right. So the interesting here, the scenarios here, though, so if people have to have a loved one that they need to take care of and there's no money there, that becomes very, very difficult. Now, Brenda, in your case, were you living with your parents? Were there other siblings involved? Were your parents? Did your parents have enough money to kind of make ends meet, kind of thing?
So I was an only child.
Okay.
So there was no other siblings or support. Fortunately, I'm in that other 22%. My parents had great jobs when they were working. When they retired, they had great pensions.
Great.
That provided that. So that was a non-issue for us.
So basically, the need of receiving care started basically when they after they retired.
Correct. Actually, they were probably in their early 80s.
So that basically, time-wise, that was a better situation than in other instances.
It was.
Yeah.
It really, so I was fortunate. I was very fortunate.
So money was not an issue.
It was not an issue.
How about the emotional? Because you were hands-on.
Yes, I was.
You elaborate just a little bit
so
on that?
I didn't live in the house with them. I had my own home.
Okay.
So it was, for me, it was managing 2 households. I was working full-time in college myself, raising a teenager, and I had both parents.
Wow.
And so it was basically full-time. At that time, there were no hours that you could get from your employer to take off. So a lot of times I ate up my own personal vacation time. And then the emotional...
So instead of going on vacation...
you absolutely...
Those vacations...
it was already eaten up.
Wow.
And then the emotional toll of just caring for them. So sometimes he'd be sick, she'd be fine. She'd be fine, he'd be sick. And so it was a continuous cycle. It was over a 28-year period.
Wow.
It was gradual. It was gradual, but in the end, I'm going to say the last 10, 15 years, it was straight hands-on.
And I know you love your parents.
Absolutely.
But can you describe just a little bit what was the feeling after that care ended, that you did not have to care? I mean, I just want to get a feel for, what you were going through after.
So he passed away in 2004 at 92. She passed away in 2010 at 95.
Okay.
I am still recovering.
Wow.
Still emotionally, physically. I'm still recovering because I don't have that. And that's like a missing piece now for me. And now I'm beginning to rediscover me again and who I am.
So you basically lost your life.
Yeah, and the time that I've now been given back. And I can kind of see a lot of my friends were moving on with their lives and they were traveling, they were doing all these things. I was stuck in this process.
Wow.
And then a season. And then after it ended, I am now beginning to rediscover who I am.
That's amazing.
And to get my time back and to do some of the things and to travel and do things that I now want to do. So the emotional toll is heavy.
Wow.
It is heavy. And then there's still guilt because you still wonder if you did all that you could do. You know you did, but there's a part of you that's still going to say, did I do everything I could possibly do for them?
Obviously, it would have been a little easier if there would have been others around to kind of help you.
You would hope so.
Right.
But that's not always the case either.
Right.
I had relatives that there were times I would ask for respite, and they could not provide that.
That's amazing.
They wouldn't provide it, I will say. So even if you have siblings, does not mean.
Doesn't guarantee it.
It does not guarantee it.
And Alex, even though you were from a distance, but would you mind sharing just a little bit about maybe what your family in Mexico was going through, your sister, maybe others?
Absolutely. And I think, David, in our case, I'm going to say that we were lucky enough that, I mean, growing up in Mexico City, we had a good support system of the family. The family had workers there at the house. We had a lady that has worked for the family for over 60-some years that was there with my mom and my sister supporting. So we were the lucky ones there.
Okay.
The other thing to consider is that in Mexico, the cost of caregiving is probably less than half of the cost here in the U.S.
Right.
So there's a huge disparity between the caregiving in Mexico and here on the cost, on the financial side. But we did have that support system. I mean, my sister had the support system of having that lady. She was my nanny, basically, when I was a baby. And she basically took care of...
Was she living in the house?
For many years, she lived there at the house. The later years, she had her own house. My mom bought her a house, and she had her house, but she would come every single day and take care. But it got to a point in the probably last year of my mom's life that we did have to bring in a live-in caregiver, where it got to
more
a point
of a professional?
Yes, a professional nurse, exactly. That was there 24 hours a day, basically.
Wow.
And it was 6 days a week that she was taking care of my mom and giving my sister that respite, a little help on that, because on a daily basis, she was the one really doing everything for her, would take her to doctor appointments, you name it. But having that support, that lady, professional lady, was really, really helpful for her.
Yeah. So support system, you had it, maybe in your case, not so much.
Yes.
And Cindy, in your case, you are taking care of your mother. You said she has dementia. How is that experience like?
You know, it's positive now because my mom's there, but I do want to touch on a couple things. It's $22 an hour to bring somebody in to help with your loved one, and that's on the low side, and that's just companion care, basically helping with some light housekeeping. However, like Alex, I have 3 siblings, and there's a different dynamic when you have siblings that are out of state. They will call and question my decisions.
Wow.
And our relationship has suffered because of that. And I've learned, I had to go to therapy about this, and my therapist said, find out what they're good in and make sure they stay in that lane. So my sister's good with medical bills. My other brother is good with calling and encouraging my parents. And my other brother comes and visits once in a while. So they need to stay in their lane, so it allows me to do what I'm best at.
Yeah. I said earlier that caregiving is not new. I remember when I was a child living in Mexico. I was born in Mexico and came to the United States when I was 12. At those 12 years there, I saw my mother take care of my dad's mom 100%. And my grandma literally died in the house and with my mother there. So my mother literally took care of her mother-in-law. And then on my mother's side, her mom stayed home to be, in her last days. And one daughter basically is the one that it seems like it lands on somebody when there is somebody, right? So it landed on one of my tias, one of my aunts. And distance, it's a big deal. Because she lived pretty far from others, and then she was a stay-home mom, my tia. So she was there. So you basically like by default. So here's the gift, kind of thing, and so caregiving it's I have my parents right now. They spend 6 months in Mexico, 6 months here. My wife and I kind of handle some of their things, and so caregiving. There's nothing new. But it takes a process. It takes coordination. It takes a team. And we are going to be talking about in the last 2 segments on that process of preparing to care. We have, again, a PowerPoint that we use. And that PowerPoint gives us pretty much the steps, right? The steps that it takes to care for a loved one. And so it involves forming your team. It involves, assigning. It involves taking care of so many areas, the finance, the doctor, the medical bills, the house, etc. So it's a process. And it shouldn't be a one-man or a one-person thing. If not, it'll be very, very difficult.
And on Facebook, like Ricardo pointed out something that's key right here. Education, number one.
Right.
I think that is key for every single person that goes through this journey, is to educate themselves and ask for help.
Right. Stay with us. We are going to go on a short break. We'll come back. You are listening to AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. The subject today, Caregivers, Prepare to Care. We'll be right back.
Welcome to AARP, Arizona Hispanic Connection. Educate. Celebrate. Connect. Arizona Hispanic Connection.
Thank you. Thank you for staying with us. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. The subject today, Caregivers, Prepare to Care. A very, very important subject. I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't identify or know someone who has either needed care or has provided care. This is just a human thing. And the reason why we are having this conversation is because there is a process, there's a way to prepare. And I think we need to go into that. So in this process that ARP, the PowerPoint that we use to present this subject, we talk about the first step being starting the conversation. So you're going to start the conversation with the person you're going to care for. So how is that process? And even you have that experience, Cindy. Go ahead.
It's not easy. The conversation is not easy. Especially if they're making assumptions that one of their children will take care of them. As a matter of fact, real quickly, we had a discussion my family did 10 years ago. We sat around at a table and my parents wanted to say, how are you guys going to take care of us? I was the only one that stepped up. Everybody else had excuses. And they weren't really, hey, well, I'm going to be on a mission trip. I've got my own special needs, that kind of thing. But talking about care is really hard because it's almost as if you're talking about money. Now you've got some shame involved if they didn't save for their elderly years. And somebody may be thinking, well, you're only talking about care for me because you want my money. So it just opens a lot of emotions.
So they basically accuse you of helping because you want some inheritance or something.
Well, exactly. You just want to live in their house because you don't want to pay for your own house.
Now, what is the reaction of the loved one? Is there a time when they insist perhaps that they can still fend for themselves? And that is like maybe the driving part, etc.?
Oh, always. I mean, my dad, he'll never acknowledge that he's going to need help. I'm going to take care of this myself. I'm going to be independent, clear through. But he's not. Your bodies fail. You need help.
Right. But it must not be that easy for a person to basically acknowledge that and give up and accept the help, pretty much.
No, and that's why you have to start gradually, like Brenda did, just coming in and making meals. Hey, Mom, Dad, I'm checking on you. What do you need today? Let's go ahead and refill those prescriptions. It has to start gradually so they get used to having you.
And I assume that the conversation has to take into account their likes and dislikes. So in other words, you kind of have to get to know the loved ones because you want to respect their wishes. You don't want to just be an intruder coming into a house and setting up the living room and everything rearranged and stuff. So it's going to have to take that conversation. Yeah. You said, Brenda, that in your case it was more gradual and not in all those years you lived with your parents.
Correct. So it was a gradual process, and it started out, just over gradual. I began to notice that the need was starting to increase, and then the phone calls at work started to increase to come because someone needed help or care. So I think starting the conversation sometimes is, you don't even have to start the conversation. Sometimes it even starts itself.
Right.
Because it can be a gradual process.
Right.
Some are thrown into it immediately, but then in my case, it was over a gradual period of time.
And you know, the conversation is not just dad, mom, so and so, I'm going to take care of you.
No.
But it has to go deeper into the bank accounts, the investments, the insurance coverage that they have, and the other resources. So it is very, very complex, you know. Anybody want to share information on that? Because I mean, you're basically going to take care of them because they probably cannot take care of themselves. So now you have to be familiar with bank accounts, and investments, and all that kind of good stuff.
Well, my process was that being the only child, they had put me on everything anyway.
Okay.
So for me, it was. I then started to have to go to the bank to make the deposits. They were old school, so it was money orders back in the day, and that's how we paid their bills. And it was, then it was the grocery shopping, and then it was the driving and things of that nature. But I do understand that for some, that money situation it can be cumbersome. One of my aunts, my mother's baby sister, I cared for her for a little while, and she did not know how to write out checks. And I started noticing shut-off notices coming to the house. And I finally said, Aunt Joe, I'm seeing shut-off notices. What's happening? She just threw the checkbook at me. And I opened it up, and you could see where she attempted to write checks. She didn't know how. And so then the exposure came. And so then I was able to realize she needed to be taken care of. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. It's a process.
Yeah.
I think the financial process is a complicated one. In our case, my dad, when I was graduating from high school, he started developing Alzheimer's. And my mom basically was the main caregiver. So, those are some of the regrets that I have in life, that I wasn't there to help my mom with my dad. I came to the U.S. to study. So I wasn't there at that time to help her out. My sister was there, so she has been amazing. I love my sister, and I thank her, I think, every day for everything that she's done for the family and for my parents. But my mom basically took over the finances at that time. My dad was a well-to-do attorney, so eventually they had to close down the office. My sister worked for my dad there for a while and took care pretty much of everything on that one. So between both my sister and my mom, they handled the financial situation. But at the point when my mom became with dementia, diagnosed with dementia, it got to a point that my sister had to take over the finances because my mom was losing money left and right.
Wow.
We didn't know what she was doing with it. So she basically took over that. So that is an important key. And it's very uncomfortable because my mom got to a point that she's like, okay, where's my money? Why do you have access to this now? And she was never like that before. But dementia changes the person. It's a totally different individual.
Did she accuse anyone of stealing?
Oh, absolutely. Her purse disappeared every single day. She would hide her purse. Would have no idea where that purse went, and obviously accused every single person in the family of stealing.
Wow. It's amazing. It's amazing because, again, and it seems like the more you have, or the more the person or the parent has, perhaps the more complicated it might get. And I mean, I have to believe that if there are possessions and they're going to have to go to a professional, maybe an advisor, and really, really dig into the whole situation to make the right decisions. But I'm sure that the parents, especially if they had all these things, but they were not necessarily educated as to how things work, that's going to make it very difficult for them to accept that another person, even if it's a child, is going to begin to get into to those things.
No one wants to lose their independence.
Of
and
course.
That's what it is. Well, my body's failing and now you're taking my money, or I can't remember. I know I need help, but I want to remain independent. And that's, as caregivers, that's what we really want to do. We want them to be independent and feel our love clear to the end.
Right.
But sometimes it's hard. And then also sometimes you don't like them.
Right.
The people you're caring for, you don't like them.
Of course.
I mean, I've been resentful. I've been very resentful. Why are you calling me? I'm here. I can't take care of you.
Sometimes you have to get mad. I mean, it's normal.
Yeah, it's
now,
normal,
because of time, let us move in the next 5 minutes into the formation of a team. Because if this is going to get a little easier, the formation of the team has to be there. So what, you have issues of distance, and nowadays you don't have the extended family anymore. That is a thing of the past. In the past, you had the childs and the grandkids and the tios and the primos and everybody there. That's kind of like a thing of the past. Distance is a big issue. So how do you do that? The distance, who's going to take care of what? Who has the talents? Where are the strengths within the group that is going to take care of the family? I mean, I assume it has to be very high priority to form a team. Anybody?
That is correct. No, I think everybody understands that this job of caregiving is too big just for one person. So we have to form a team. You've got to be able to reach out to whether it's family members in the faith-based community. It may be somebody there. It can be a neighbor. Different people that can be part of your team. And then identifying key things from each individual that they're really good at. If somebody is very good in math or finances, then ask for that person for help in that situation.
Okay.
If it's a person that has the time maybe to drive the person to a doctor appointment, find that person, assign it to that person. Someone has to be the leader.
Yeah. It's interesting. Within my siblings, there's a family. We are a family of 9. My wife's a family of 11. And sometimes there is a criticism about me. They criticize my dad. Well, go ask David, kind of thing. Go ask David. Whatever David says, you do. So there is such a thing. And a lot of times it's like you're saying, each sibling, each brother, sister, or person has a talent, a strength, and that's what needs to happen in the formation of a team. My wife, on my wife's side of the family, even on ours, we have a group text message. So anytime something happens, hey guys, I called my dad this morning. He sounded okay, or things like that. So there has to be a team effort.
Absolutely.
Right. I mean, you were saying the research. I have found that my sister is very good at research, and so she researches social services. Tell me about what sort of transportation is available, what the area agency on aging is doing. Hook us up in that, because I don't have time, nor am I good in that.
Exactly.
So she can research, and she lives in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah.
So she can do that all day long and then send us.
Nowadays we can do it from anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So technology is a good thing these days. It'll help a lot. So Brenda, I'm telling you, Brenda, you did it on yourself.
I did it on my own. I did.
Amazing.
But now I did have neighbors that I could rely on.
Right.
They had great doctors, and from time to time we did have some people coming in at times to look at, kind of look after them in the midday. At one point I did get some little Meals on Wheels to kind of just have that as supplements because I didn't cook. I didn't want to cook all the time. I didn't have time to cook all the time. But mind you, you're talking about late 80s, early 90s for me. And at that point, there were no caregiving. We weren't talking about that. That wasn't on our radar then. And I did do it by myself for the most part. I did. But my neighbors, I did rely. They had keys to the house. They had my work number, things of that nature. And so that was helpful to me. But other than that, no, it was by the grace of God.
Yeah.
Okay, by the grace of God.
It is amazing.
Brenda touched on something in that time. Nobody talked about caregiving. No. We still don't talk about it very much because if you ask someone, the woman will just say, "Oh, I'm a mother. This is what I do. I'm a mother. I'm a sister. I'm just taking care of." I'm not a caregiver. They're reluctant to take on that label of caregiving, but they still day in day in they're caregiving, but they don't recognize they don't want to take it on.
Is there a concept or an experience that as a daughter or son says, no, I have to take care of my father, my mother, and a transition to being okay that somebody else that maybe that is not a family member will take care and be fine and not feel guilty because they're one of the plans or the steps in the Prepare to Care is taking care of yourself. So at some point, you kind of have to detach yourself a little bit emotionally. Is there such a thing?
Self-care is so important. Caregivers are losing sleep. They're not taking their own medication because they're making sure their loved one takes medication. They're not sleeping, period. You're not sleeping as a caregiver. And your health deteriorates. As a matter of fact, 2 out of 3 times that an ambulance comes to a home, it's not for the loved one. It's for the caregiver.
Wow.
They've just worked themselves in. So
That is
self-care,
amazing.
support groups are so important.
Right.
Taking that time for mindfulness, even if it's 5 minutes a day.
And we're going to continue with the taking care of yourself in just a minute or two. Stay with us. This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. We'll be right back.
Welcome to AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. Educate. Celebrate. Connect. Arizona Hispanic Connection.
This is AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. The subject today is Caregivers, Prepared to Care. I want to say again that this is the last show on Saturdays. We are moving the show to Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. So please spread the word, let others know. And if you are listening by radio, please, if you do Facebook, join our page. Find us on Facebook at AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection so that we can stay connected and you get the notices of our shows, etc. All right, we only have a few more minutes, and let's go back to this process of preparing to care, and hopefully people will have the time to prepare, because a lot of times something comes suddenly and you have to do things on the run, so to speak. So let's focus on two areas. Taking care of yourselves, which means support, and then resources. How important is it to take care of yourself?
Well, you can't underestimate the value of a support group, a weekly or biweekly support group, getting together with like-minded people and just being able to vent without judgment is important. Also, respite is critical. And respite means taking a break. And taking a break could be taking a nap, going to play bingo, going grocery shopping without having to worry about someone. As a matter of fact, the Arizona Caregiver Coalition, where I work, we have $300 a month respite scholarships.
Wow.
So I would really encourage...
And is this ongoing?
Ongoing. Every 3 months, we can give you $300 for respite to take a break. The caveat is that the respite is at adult day health centers throughout the state. They're fabulous.
And what? How do they get a hold of you or the entity that will provide the information?
They can call us at 888-737-7494. That's the Arizona Caregiver Coalition.
And if they do internet, are you on the
Yes.
web?
It's called azcaregiver.org.
Okay, azcaregiver.org. And we are going to include that information on Facebook if you are joining us by Facebook. Very important. So respite simply means that the person providing the care will get a little break, and they'll get a little, a few dollars to take for someone else to take care of the loved one, so they can take a little break and recharge batteries, so to speak.
It's so important. Even if it's just an hour away, you're never mentally away. But if you can physically take a break, that's so important.
Right. Okay, so this is now, Brenda, from the aspect of AARP, what information can they find where?
Well, they can always call the office. You know, we have some excellent resource guides that we have. We have the Prepare to Care guide, actually, which is the guide that actually walks you through the process, navigating the process of caregiving along with the checklist.
Okay.
And then we have the Prepare to Care resource guide that has a list of all of the resources. And then I think we have part of our website. We can it's dedicated to the caregiving.
Yeah.
You can
Actually,
get more resources.
I accessed it this morning. If you go to aarp.org/caregiving, there is a ton of information on caregiving.
Yes.
Actually, the PowerPoint that I've been referring to literally came out of a book, the booklet that you just mentioned, Prepare to Care. And that has a lot good information. If you are listening by radio and would like, actually, let me put us on the spot. If you let us know on Facebook and that you want the booklet, we'll mail it to you
give it to
at
you.
our
Absolutely.
cost. Right?
We will.
But if you do internet, you can go to the website and there is a PDF file that you can download. Or even we can send it to you on PDF. But I think this book, have you seen it? Is that book?
Oh, I
Cindy?
have. We use it all the time, and we mail it out to people.
What do you
that
think about
contact us.
that book?
It's heavy.
It's heavy.
But I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like it, and you can make notes. But the best thing is that it starts the conversation.
Right.
It just puts the little pebble. You can start that conversation, and it makes people think of, hey, what do I need to ask later on down the road if my parents are resistant to talk about it right now? Communication is so important.
Right. So again, go ahead, Alex.
I just wanted to point something that Cindy mentioned earlier, and I'm going to sound a little bit selfish here, but I think the importance of caring for yourself, to me, it's one of probably the most important out of all the steps that we have mentioned, because if you don't take care of yourself, then you can't take care of that person that you're loving there, or that you're helping out. So that the importance of taking that respite for 1 hour, or taking a couple days on break, finding someone to come in and step in for you is critical. And I've seen it. A very good friend of mine just recently lost mom and dad, and he was spending so many hours having to take care of them. But just that little help of, whether it was me or his wife or someone else, my wife, just going in there and spending time with them and giving them that break is critical. It is so important for them.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be it's a team effort, and so here we're talking about the conversations that it could be very difficult. You're going to have to address the issue of money, the issue of the house, the issue of the cars, what the parents like, what they want. You cannot just go in the house and start rearranging things. That conversation, it takes a lot of time and effort. Then the team. Sometimes I get on my wife's case, for example, that she does a lot of work or some tasks that my son can do. So I said, dear, why don't you ask the 16-year-old son to do it? Oh, I want to do it. I like to do it. Well, yeah, you like to do it. But so that aspect of delegating and feeling good about not doing the things your way, because a lot of times we want to do the things because we don't think that anybody else is going to do it right.
You're right.
So that is a tough situation. And then if the person has possessions, money, houses, you might need a professional to... You might need to pay money. So the team, the conversation, and then especially if it's at a distance, that's going to be a little tricky. You're going to have to depend maybe on family, friends, perhaps neighbors. And then let's talk a little bit about money, because in the end, if people have money, they have more options. But then those that do not, to me, that's a little bit more difficult on them.
You're right. Money, as we were talking, is very, very difficult. But the options that are out there are in-home care and assisted living, bringing full-time caregivers. And if somebody is on All-Tex, then a family member can be paid to take care of them. So Medicaid can come in that way.
So let's go through the process. So first, a person, if a person cannot take care of his or herself, then the best option is for them to remain at home. So
Yes.
then the support has to come in. The care has to come to them. So once that becomes difficult, what are the choices? Or even if it's difficult for the caregivers, they can go to assisted living facilities? Is that one option?
That's one option, but that's private pay.
Private pay.
So they'll have to pay, and it could run, depending on the level of care, someone that doesn't need a lot of care could be about $3,000 a month.
A month. Okay.
And that's pretty basic. So,
and this is
then we
assisted
go up.
living, right?
Assisted living.
Now, there must be some institutions that are independent living with minimum, perhaps, or
Yep. Independent living is fancy apartments.
Okay.
And they'll also have all of the meals, lots and lots of amenities. That's going to run you about $2,200 a
Right.
month.
Okay. So that's pretty pricey.
Very pricey.
And then eventually, if the loved one needs nursing care, nursing home, then the possibility, because very few people buy long-term care insurance, very, very few.
Correct.
So they're going to have to spend down, right? They're going to have to spend all the money that they have until they come down to the limit that All-Tex, right, which is Arizona Long-Term Care System.
Exactly.
Right.
That's $2,000.
$2,000.
You have to get down to approximately $2,000.
Is this of income or possessions?
Assets?
Assets.
Assets.
Okay.
Right. Right.
So basically, you have to spend all your money to be eligible to have eligibility for the state to step in with the All-Tex program.
Exactly. That's Medicaid. And to give you a perspective, there's only 56,000 people in the state of Arizona that's on All-Tex. And 60% of those are on All-Tex because of developmental disabilities. So All-Tex is difficult to get on. And once you have it, it's a wonderful, wonderful program. As a matter of fact, the state of Arizona has the best long-term care system. People come from other states to get on it.
That's amazing.
It is difficult to get on because you have to be medically eligible as well as financially eligible.
So those are you could say the more extreme stage, if you will.
Yes.
Where somebody's moving more into really, really needing 24-hour care. So the assisted living and the nursing homes. Now, there's also something about group homes, I heard.
Group homes, right. So the $3,000 I gave you, that would be an assisted living group home.
Okay.
If you wanted to live into a community, it's going to it'll be around $5,000.
So people who do not, maybe they didn't save or they don't have incomes, the children are going to have to step in. And if money is not there, then the only option is going to have to be to stay home. And that's why AARP, Alex, do you know if the tax credit at the federal level was accepted or passed? The tax credit that we were advocating for, real quick?
Well, at the local level, at the state level, the tax credit, we started that last year in 2017. It didn't go through, didn't pass. This year, 2018, it made it a little bit further into the legislative process. It still failed. Next year, we are going to try it again. But hopefully, if people are listening, hopefully they can call their state representatives, tell them that it is very important to have that family tax credit. It's $1,000 for a family tax credit. It's income tax. So we're hoping the next year will be the year that we can pass this.
So this is a little bit that the government can do, right? Not much help financially out there, really. I mean, unless you go to the last stage of nursing home. But to go to a nursing home, a doctor has to approve it. And, there's the whole process. And then you have to spend down your money and your assets to the levels required by All-Tex. We have come to the end of our show. This is a very, very important subject. I know we are going to be addressing this more than once. This was just the first one. Actually, I don't remember. We probably already spoke about this in the past. Again, please know that this is the last show on Saturdays. We will see you and hear you on Thursday from 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you so very much for joining today. This was AARP Arizona Hispanic Connection. Have a great day.